I instructed the waiter to place my divorce document on the table where my unfaithful wife and her paramour were dining, engaged in merriment as if they controlled the universe. Upon reading the chilly, strategic words, her laughter ceased. She scrutinized the contents multiple times, hoping to alter the message's immutable truth. He exhibited signs of distress, with wide eyes, trembling hands, and a fleeting glimpse of despair. The lover looked bewildered, seeking clarification, yet she remained speechless. She understood the implications. I did too. My presence was unnecessary to witness the ensuing turmoil. I had orchestrated each aspect of that dramatic moment, meticulously planning every move, every word in that letter, and subsequent actions. As she mourned and likely berated her lover, I departed from the city, feeling a sense of liberation I had never anticipated from such a tragic event. My phone was switched off, ensuring my location remained hidden from her. By the time he returned home to argue with me, it would be past hope. Suitcases were packed and the wardrobe was empty. I hadn't merely left, I had vanished. And she was solitary. It was a cruel irony that for so long she believed herself the shrewdest, her deft deceits intricate enough to keep me in the dark. But I saw through it all. From the initial hushed phone calls to the clandestine meetings she presumed were unnoticed. Each time she entered our home and confronted me with lies, I felt more resolute. No affection remained, only the crushing sensation of betrayal. Slowly, she chipped away at me, and each false grin, every weak alibi, was a nail hammered into the funeral shroud of our marriage. For weeks, I meticulously planned my departure. The escape had to be flawless, as any flaw would provide her with an opportunity to manipulate matters, and that I could not abide. She was skillful at it. Always my modus operandi manipulating others, distorting truth for personal gain. I mastered the art. In the end, I felt it necessary for her to comprehend the extent she had underestimated me. Leaving wasn't enough. I desired her to experience, even momentarily, the agony of losing everything. The letter served as the catalyst. I recall every word I penned, meticulously chosen for impact. You deceived me, believing I wouldn't uncover your secret, but I always knew. While you reveled in your deception, I was orchestrating my exit. Now you stand alone, as you deserve to be. Upon concluding her reading, she likely felt a knot in her stomach, the sensation one experiences when everything collapses simultaneously. This is what I felt upon discovering her true nature. It was only just that she should feel the same. I envisioned her thoughts. She believed I would remain, waiting, engaging in arguments, or even pleading for her return. But no, never. Her grave error was underestimating my resolve, believing I lacked the fortitude to depart and leave her grappling with the repercussions. It was then that she understood her misjudgment. Upon returning home, she found an empty living room, our pictures absent from the walls, and our photos conspicuously missing. Entering our room, she beheld the gaping void where my belongings once were, signaling irrevocably that this time I was gone for good. Her phone rang incessantly that night, with calls from friends, possibly family. The accumulating messages must have inquired about my disappearance and the circumstances leading to it. She likely made attempts to contact me too, numerous times, leaving distraught voicemails, some potentially expressing regret. However, I remained oblivious to these pleas. This was her retribution. I knew her reaction would be to salvage her image and concoct an explanation for our parting. I would have declared that the situation was a misinterpretation, that we were enduring a hardship. However, this wasn't accurate. The reality emerged in those stark and final words of the letter. She was unfaithful and would bear the repercussions. What she couldn't fathom was that I surpassed everyone's expectations. While she was engrossed in her deceit with her lover, I was ensuring there would be no escape route for her when the time came. I transferred the house and all valuable assets to an unfamiliar name, guaranteeing nothing would remain for her following the divorce. Every piece of furniture, every item she believed belonged to her, now did not. And upon her inquiry, she would encounter only closed doors. It wasn't solely about ending the relationship. It was about ensuring she never recuperated from the impact I was preparing to inflict. I had meticulously planned each detail, forecasting every potential maneuver she might execute. Even as she grappled with the reality, I embarked on a path devoid of her presence, liberated. She faced the truth that the intricate web of deceit and treachery she had constructed was collapsing around her. Alone in that vacant residence, she might still cling to the letter, uncertain about her next move. For the first time, she found herself without power. Intrigued, I wanted to observe how desperately she would strive to rectify the irreparable. The game was now hers. However, there remained a hidden truth I had yet to divulge, a revelation that could alter everything. This final strike I reserved as a reminder that the repercussions of her actions were far more severe than she ever fathomed. The harshest aspect was that she was never truly in control. I was. She was merely stepping into the trap I had carefully laid, and now all she could do was watch as it imploded before her eyes. In this channel, we denounce any form of betrayal. The tales ahead are fictitious, yet carry a strong, poignant message. Betrayal is a road that brings pain and ruin, touching lives far beyond the betrayer. Brace yourself for a gripping narrative where decisions' repercussions unfold in unforeseen and cruel manners. Adjust your volume, take a moment to compose yourself, because what follows will stir your feelings. A well-crafted story awaits you. It was an ordinary autumn morning, with a mild wind whispering through the streets, scattering fallen leaves across the pavement, and the sun hesitantly peeking out from behind heavy clouds. Jack Parker, age 42, stood on the porch of his home, bought more than a decade ago, gazing at the distant sky, searching for tranquility amidst the tumult in his mind. A man of precision and order, he cherished stability above all else. Jack, throughout his life, established a robust career as a lawyer and constructed the lifestyle he had long envisioned, which included a cozy home, a seemingly flawless marriage, and an orderly routine. He preferred to maintain control over every aspect of his life, but recently, a heavy mist seemed to enshroud his existence, leaving everything unclear. The house, a grand edifice with brick exposed and large windows, was Jack's pride. He and his spouse, Olivia, had selected every detail together, from the curtains' color to the arrangement of furniture in the living room. It served as their sanctuary, knowing they would find solace in each other's company at day's end. Olivia was a 39-year-old woman, radiating vitality and sophistication, with a captivating smile that could illuminate any space. She contrasted Jack significantly. While he was somber and reserved, she was gregarious and sociable, always prepared to share a jest or casual dialogue. Perhaps it was this disparity that initially bonded them. Jack found in her the levity he required in his existence. Olivia possessed an inherent allure. She served as a marketing manager for a cosmetics firm and was acclaimed for her adept handling of clients and advertising campaigns. Her profession was her passion, and she thrived at social functions and critical meetings. Jack admired the ease with which she navigated through dialogues, always beaming and ready with a gracious remark. He recognized that she was the type of individual who commanded attention, and for quite some time, he felt fortunate to have her by his side. The duo appeared to operate seamlessly, complementing each other, and life flowed at an agreeable tempo. On weekends, they would dine at upscale restaurants, host informal gatherings with friends, and evenings were typically spent snuggled on the couch, engrossed in movies or discussing future endeavors. Recently, a change in atmosphere had become apparent. Jack sensed that Olivia was preoccupied, lost in thought, as if far away, even when Jack addressed her directly. She spent an increasing amount of time on her phone, occasionally giggling over messages he couldn't see. A subtle unease filled the air, something Jack couldn't quite identify, but it seemed to grow stronger day by day. Despite his efforts to brush it aside, the nagging suspicion that all was not right refused to let him be at ease. He began to ponder if this was merely a passing phase, a consequence of work-related stress, or if there was something deeper hidden behind the smiles that now appeared more forced than before. Olivia, however, chose to maintain an outward semblance of normality. She recognized that Jack was observing her, that he had noticed her absences and moments of distraction, but she decided against addressing the issue directly. Usually, when left alone together, she navigated discussions towards uncontroversial subjects, sidestepping anything potentially contentious. "My job is chaotic," she frequently replied whenever Jack endeavored to initiate a conversation about her emotions. "We've got a new project, and it's consuming all my energy." He accepted this because he understood her commitment to her work, yet deep down, something gnawed at him. He wished to believe that everything was all right, just a passing phase, but uncertainty lingered, a persistent shadow refusing to disperse. Their bond had evolved, and Jack yearned for the days when things felt effortless. When they first met, there was an instant bond. He recollected the leisurely city strolls, spontaneous meals in cozy eateries, the unexpected bouts of laughter, a sense of freedom that now seemed elusive. Despite this, he made a conscious effort to maintain the status quo. Jack arranged surprises for Olivia, prepared unique dinners, and frequently inquired about her day's events, attempting to rekindle their bond. Occasionally, his efforts succeeded, eliciting smiles, forehead kisses, and declarations of him being the world's best husband from Olivia. However, there were times when he seemed distant, as if preoccupied, which left him troubled. Others noticed minor transformations in Olivia. These acquaintances remarked that she appeared more reserved, less visible at social events she enjoyed. She constantly provided reasons related to work or time constraints, yet her evasiveness stirred suspicion among them. Despite these indicators, Jack refused to let his concerns overshadow their relationship. He maintained faith in his understanding of Olivia, believing that if there were any genuine issues, she would confide in him. However, her silence was more eloquent than any spoken words. The days dragged on, filled with uncertainty. Jack spent increasingly longer hours in his office engulfed by documents and cases, while Olivia frequently attended social functions and gatherings, constantly rushing. Details that Jack previously overlooked, such as the new perfume she wore or her meticulously selected wardrobe, started to catch his attention. He attempted to rationalize this behavior as self-improvement, but a subconscious part of him understood it was evasion. Their once comforting home now felt like a chamber filled with hidden truths. Jack questioned what other secrets lay beneath those smiles and excuses, and how long he could continue the facade that everything was normal. On certain evenings, when Olivia was asleep, he'd sit in the lounge, staring vacantly, pondering the fate of their love. Was it his fault? Hers? His mind buzzed with unanswered questions. One evening, Jack concluded a transformation was essential. He wasn't sure what awaited him, but he recognized he couldn't carry on amidst doubt. If there was truth hidden behind the distance, he'd uncover it. At that instant, something within him started readying for whatever was required. It was a quiet, barely noticeable resolution, yet it would alter everything. Meanwhile, Olivia persisted in her daily routine, seemingly unfazed, yet submerging herself deeper into a network of hidden truths and fabrications she had crafted. She understood Jack's shrewdness and intuition. He wouldn't take long to discern that things were amiss. Yet, possibly due to pride or feeling invincible, she believed she could maintain control over the situation. She placed her faith in the belief that as long as she upheld the facade, he would have no reason to suspect her. Unbeknownst to Olivia, Jack had become more attentive than ever, and the game of appearances she believed she was dominating was on the verge of an unanticipated twist. The heavy tension that filled the silence between them hinted at something significant brewing. Once it unfolded, there would be no going back. Days began to feel odd for Jack, a sense of foreboding weighing heavily as if something loomed ahead. He found his mind wandering at work, an unusual occurrence for someone so focused. He started scrutinizing Olivia's actions more carefully, hoping to find clues in her casual movements and glances around the house. A blend of worry and deep discomfort gnawed at his chest, a nagging suspicion he couldn't dismiss. If he was correct, his life would be irrevocably altered. Simultaneously, Olivia appeared to inhabit a separate reality. Jack observed her chuckling on the phone, talking in a way unusual for their regular encounters. He started noticing irregularities, such as her early departures from work and delayed arrivals, which she attributed to new projects. Yet, he couldn't ignore her meticulous choice of attire before leaving, clothing that seemed intended to impress someone. She was no longer the spontaneous woman he admired. Instead, she adopted a cautious, attentive demeanor, as if always mindful of not missing something. One afternoon, while arranging his home office, Jack discovered a piece of evidence confirming his suspicions. He wasn't searching for anything specific, just organizing the scattered documents left by Olivia on the table. Among old invoices and bills, he found a receipt from an upscale restaurant, dated a Tuesday night. That week, he recalled, Olivia had mentioned she would be working late with the marketing team. That restaurant, however, wasn't famous for hosting business dinners. A sense of unease washed over him, but he managed to keep his composure. Perhaps there was an innocent reason, perhaps it was just paranoia. But deep down, he sensed something more was at play. That very evening, Jack proposed a home-cooked dinner instead, aiming to dispel the growing tension between them. Olivia agreed with a tentative smile, and Jack spent the afternoon meticulously preparing as he used to. When she arrived, weary-eyed and distant, Jack attempted to inject some levity into the situation. "How was work?" he inquired offhandedly as he poured wine. She smiled, but her reply was evasive, fragmented, and for a moment Jack nearly discarded his suspicions. Almost. The truth gradually surfaced when, one Saturday, he chose to investigate further. It was a risky move, and he acknowledged it. His longing for answers had transformed into a silent compulsion, something he could no longer disregard. Olivia claimed she was having brunch with a friend, but Jack secretly trailed her to a hidden hotel downtown. He parked at a distance and observed as she stepped out of the car, looked around nervously, then quickly entered through the side door of the hotel. A couple of minutes later, another man emerged and followed suit. From his vantage point, Jack couldn't make out the man's face, but his heart sank when he comprehended what it implied. In his car, Jack was at a loss about his next move. He wanted to storm in, confront, yell, yet an inner voice held him back. A calm, calculating voice suggesting patience, caution. He remained motionless for nearly an hour until Olivia reappeared, adjusting her hair and glancing at her phone before getting back into the car and driving home as if the incident never occurred. Jack trailed behind her, harboring an unfamiliar blend of fury and sorrow. He returned home prior to her, slipping in through the back entrance and securing himself in the office, where he could listen to the garage door opening and closing. Upon Olivia's arrival, he wasn't present. For several subsequent days, Jack made an effort to behave as usual. Numerous instances arose where he considered confronting her, but each time he relented at the last instant. A part of him hoped she would confess on her own, acknowledge her wrongdoings, and seek forgiveness. However, he realized that such a scenario was unlikely. Olivia persisted with her alibis, her growing absences, and her practiced smiles, as if she were enacting a role that no longer resonated with her. In response, Jack continued to portray the image of a devoted spouse, concealing the tempest within him. It was on a Sunday evening that their relationship finally crumbled completely. Jack cooked a straightforward meal, anticipating Olivia's return from her shopping excursion. Upon entering the house, Jack observed an unfamiliar emotion on her face. It might have been fatigue or regret, but there was uncertainty he wasn't accustomed to. They dined in quiet solitude, scarcely conversing, and when they concluded their meal, Jack initiated his plan. "We need to talk," he announced after a long pause, observing her face transform into a facade of apprehension. "What about?" she asked, trying to muster a smile, but failing. Jack inhaled deeply, sensing this was the critical juncture. "About us and your whereabouts this afternoon." Olivia stiffened at his words. The look of surprise swiftly transformed into one of denial, and she started talking, her words hurried and jittery, attempting to clarify that it was insignificant, merely a momentary distraction, her work demands consuming her time. However, Jack had no interest in excuses. He had been patient enough for responses. "I recognize your deception, Olivia. I witnessed you entering that hotel on Saturday." A heavy silence ensued. Unable to refute it now, your words exposed you for the first time. "Jack, you started, but I silenced you with a raised hand. I didn't require additional explanations." "I don't seek your excuses or justifications," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "All I want is an answer to why." You struggled to respond, for no explanation seemed adequate. The mounting lies had left you with nowhere to hide. And then you remained silent, acknowledging that you had been exposed, that the facade had crumbled. I rose from my seat, unable to meet your gaze. Inside me was a void, an emptiness I couldn't fill. I yearned to shout, but I could not. "You've ruined everything," I said, before departing, leaving you to confront the repercussions of your actions. Jack found no peace in sleep that night. 3:30 in the morning, his clock read, and he lay awake, his mind whirling, chest constricted, as Olivia's confession reverberated within him like a phrase repeated too often to be ignored. The past month had been spent in anticipation of this moment, and now that it was here, the harshness of reality was almost unbearable. Instead of clarity, there were more questions. What had truly transpired in recent years? Had it all been an intricate fabrication by Olivia, a web of deception she skillfully spun around him? Yet, what troubled him most wasn't the betrayal itself, but the impending revelation. For the past few weeks, Jack had not only strategized on how to confront Olivia, but also ensured she understood the extent of her loss and its permanence. He knew she braced herself for a challenging separation, possibly even a legal battle over the estate, but Olivia was clueless about the measures Jack had already taken to secure control of the situation. That particular morning, Jack determined action was necessary. He braced himself with a cold shower, donned his clothes, and descended to the kitchen. Already present, Olivia sat at the table, her gaze fixed on the window, evidently exhausted, her eyes sunken and complexion pallid, betraying a restless night for both of them. The details of the divorce hadn't been broached, and Olivia appeared reluctant, almost frightened to initiate the discussion. Nevertheless, Jack was prepared. "It's essential we discuss the course of action," he stated, taking a seat opposite her. Olivia raised her eyes, startled by his blunt manner, but gave a slow nod, waiting for his words. "I've consulted my attorney, and I plan to file for divorce within the next week," Jack went on, observing her countenance stiffen. "Let me make this clear. I have no intention of proceeding with this, as you might expect." "I comprehend," Olivia responded, endeavoring to maintain her composure. She feared the outcome of their discussion, but she knew she couldn't evade it eternally. "I acknowledge my error, Jack. I'm open to compromise. We can find a resolution without complication." Jack appeared on the verge of laughter at her innocence. He nodded slowly, considering her words, before responding. "You still don't grasp the situation, do you?" He leaned closer, his gaze unwavering. "There will be no room for negotiation." A heavy silence ensued between them. Olivia was puzzled. "Like this?" he inquired, his voice trembling. "You can't leave me empty-handed, Jack. We share a home, possessions. We need a fair resolution." Jack flashed a chilling, calculating smile she had never seen before. "Fair? You speak of justice after deceiving me for months, betraying me and lying directly to my face." "No, it won't be as you expect," he said. He retrieved an envelope from his pocket and set it on the table, moving it towards her. "I wanted you to view this prior to the lawyer formally informing you." Olivia hesitated before accepting the envelope. Upon opening and reading the legal documents within, her facial expression changed gradually from confusion to disbelief. She read it again, hoping for a different outcome, but the words remained unchanged. "What is this?" he inquired, his voice faltering. "These papers detail the transfer of all our valuable possessions, the house, joint account, and investments to a name that isn't yours," Jack explained, his voice composed but brimming with cold anger. "I spent weeks meticulously planning this, Olivia. Every aspect, every expense. You won't be taking anything with you." She stared at him, stunned, as if she couldn't comprehend the words she was hearing. "This is illegal. You can't do that," he objected, his voice rising in panic and desperation. "I can't simply abandon you with nothing. We were married, and I've followed the law," asserted Jack calmly. "Everything was done above board. If you wish to contest this, we could go to court, but trust me, it won't be beneficial." Leaning closer still, he fixed her with a steady gaze. "I transferred everything prior to filing. All that you believe to belong to you is now inaccessible." Olivia felt the world crumble beneath her feet. She rose, toppling her chair, her face drained of color, hands trembling. "You've done this to retaliate against me," she almost gasped. "You aim to seek vengeance." Jack remained unmoved. "I did it because I knew you would try to seize as much as possible," he replied, "and because I wanted you to comprehend the feeling of losing everything suddenly, just like you did to me." Tears began to gather in Olivia's eyes, but she held them back stubbornly. "You can't do this, Jack," she murmured faintly. "You're unkind, Olivia." Your comment left an uncomfortable silence, and yet you lack understanding of the severity of cruelty. That will change. You can feel the fear in your eyes now as I reveal what's to come. It's no longer my concern how you cope with the fallout. The deadline for moving out is approaching at the end of this month, so prepare yourself to find a new home for our shared residence. Your world, as you know it, disintegrates before your eyes, but you remain silent, unable to find the words to undo what has been said. Looking at Jack as he vanished down the hall, Olivia realized her defeat. She lost everything, and as the front door closed, she felt the weight of it all. Yet, Jack held a secret unshared, one reserved for an opportune moment. As Olivia grappled with the enormity of her loss, Jack was aware that there was still one decisive move left to make. A revelation he'd concealed until now, the final piece in his meticulously crafted puzzle. Something that would impede her recovery forever. Just before leaving that house for good, a text arrived on Jack's phone, verifying what he had foreseen: all transactions were completed, and there was no turning back. He felt an unusual sense of ease, yet a hint of something sour, like the unexpected taste of revenge. Meanwhile, Olivia continued searching for a way out at the table. She had no escape routes left, and deep within, she sensed Jack hadn't revealed all his secrets yet. For hours, Olivia remained at the kitchen table, her eyes seemingly fixed on a distant, dreamlike state, like awaiting awakening from an unpleasant nightmare. Jack's words echoed in her mind, each phrase ringing with a calculated chill she had never noticed before in him. The initial shock had morphed into a pervasive void, as if the world around her had suddenly become unfamiliar and alien. She hadn't envisioned Jack capable of such a decisive act, and now, without any strategy, she found herself completely vulnerable and undefended. In the weeks after the altercation, the household rhythm transformed into a silent dance. Jack no longer came home at night, and when he did, he disregarded her presence, treating her as if she were an outsider. He had become a distant apparition, seeming to wait for the perfect moment to vanish entirely. Instead of maintaining a semblance of normalcy, Olivia found herself struggling. Her mornings began with brewing coffee, followed by work, but everything felt devoid of emotion, robotic in nature. Each time she glanced at her reflection, she saw an unfamiliar woman staring back, one consumed by dread and remorse. During one of these vacant evenings, Olivia made a decision: she needed to speak with Jack, one final attempt. She was determined to persuade him to undo his actions, to at least contemplate a more compassionate solution for their divorce. Yet, she wasn't prepared for whatever might follow. However, she had no other choice. As Jack returned home that night, Olivia was stationed in the living room. The gentle glow from the lamp painted long shadows throughout the space, setting a somewhat somber tone. Upon seeing her by the window, he hesitated, seeming to ponder whether to approach her or just ascend straight upstairs. She took the lead, saying, "Jack, may we discuss something?" He looked at her wearily, as if anticipating what she was about to say. He moved closer yet kept a distance, folding his arms and waiting. "I acknowledge my mistakes," she started, seeking the right words. "I understand your anger, your desire for retribution for all that transpired. However, I propose an alternative to this path." "How do you suggest we resolve this?" Jack interjected, sounding dry. "Do you expect me to simply forget about what occurred, accept your apology, and keep up the charade?" "No," she responded urgently. "I'm not suggesting that. I want a resolution that preserves our relationship." She tried to stay composed, but her voice revealed the gravity of the situation. "You took everything from me, Jack. You took our future together. I have no idea where to go or what to do," she said despairingly. "Precisely," he retorted sharply, "and that's how I intended for you to feel." lost and powerless. The sensations that overcame her when she learned the truth. He finally settled on the couch, keeping his gaze locked with hers, challenging her to contradict him. You want me to alter my stance now, but where was your concern when you chose to violate our marriage vows? His words struck Olivia like a blow. She knew no explanation could justify her actions, yet being reduced to pieces by Jack was agonizing. I'm sorry, Jack, she whispered, at last allowing the tears to flow. I understand this won't mend anything, but I'm trying. I would do anything to rewind and correct my mistakes. Regret doesn't rectify anything, he answered sternly, his voice filled with ice. You made your decisions, now you must live with them. He rose from the couch as if the discussion was concluded, but Olivia clung to him urgently. Jack, she implored, don't depart me like this. For a brief moment, she noticed an unusual expression in his eyes, not anger or disgust, but a profound weariness, as though he had grown weary of bearing that burden. He released her arm tenderly and said, Olivia, you fail to comprehend. This isn't about retribution, it's about making certain you appreciate the consequences of shattering someone's trust, and the price one must pay. As he turned to exit, he paused momentarily before leaving and added, You are still unaware of many things. Perhaps that is what you need to grasp completely. Olivia furrowed her brow in bewilderment. What do you imply by that? Jack remained stationary in the hallway, his back still towards her. I've been planning this longer than you realize. I knew that if this ever escalated, I would have to be ready to ensure there was no going back. She fell silent, trying to comprehend his words. You've stripped me bare, Jack, she whispered. What more can you take? His response was non-existent. Instead, he departed, leaving her solitary and shrouded in dread of what loomed ahead. Olivia felt a shiver run down her spine, as if the approaching darkness threatened to consume everything. She wasn't certain of Jack's actions, but for the first time, she understood that his capacities surpassed her wildest imaginings. This realization filled her with terror. In contrast, Jack ascended to his chamber, shutting the door after him and releasing a long-drawn sigh. He had only disclosed a small portion of the truth to Olivia, and he knew that the upcoming step would be excruciating. For despite desiring her pain, there was a part of him that resisted what he was on the verge of executing. Lying on the bed, he gazed at the ceiling, momentarily acknowledging the sadness he had been concealing. The taste of revenge was sour, knowing nothing he did could heal his wounds. Yet, his resolve stood firm. Whatever unfolded next would mark the conclusion of a narrative he never wished to compose. After Jack and Olivia's last exchange, the household atmosphere grew oppressive. Olivia spent her nights in restless slumber, seeking answers about Jack's secret activities. She had already lost what she thought was secure, yet an uneasy feeling persisted, a missing detail that completed her haunting jigsaw. Contrastingly, Jack remained composed, almost detached, as if the matter had been settled within him. To him, this was merely the quiet before the impending storm, and he prepared to bring it all to an end swiftly. The confirmation of something ominous arrived on a Friday afternoon. Olivia got an unexpected email from her bank about recent transactions, revealing that her house had been transferred and all joint accounts emptied into a trust with an unidentified name. Unable to reach Jack, she headed to his office. Finding him working silently, she confronted him with the email. Did you do this? She asked, voice trembling. After reading it, he admitted, yes, it was me. Olivia's breath left her as she wondered if there was any hope of reversing the situation. This surpasses any form of retribution, Jack. What's your intention here? He responded. It's not about demonstrating anything, Olivia. It's about safeguarding yourself. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. When I discovered your relationship with another, it wasn't just a heartbreak. It was a resolve to ensure that when the truth came out, you wouldn't be able to use it against me. So I prepared myself. I transferred all assets into a secure trust under an untraceable name. Rest assured, everything is in order. Fascinating, indelible, she responded, struggling to comprehend what he was saying. You destroyed my life. No, Jack retorted with an unsettling calmness. I merely ensured you couldn't shatter mine. When you opted for infidelity in our marriage, you thought you could simply walk away without repercussions. I wanted you to realize what it means to lose everything, just as I did." Olivia remained quiet, her emotions swelling with a mix of fury and impotence. Before Jack could utter another word, he rose and approached the window, peering outside. "You were aware our divorce was imminent, yet you overlooked one crucial point," he said, his voice cryptic. "I ensured the property ownership had been transferred before your knowledge. But that's not all," he faced her, his eyes burning with a dark intensity. "I sold the house yesterday. It no longer belongs to us. You have a week to depart." Olivia was struck by these words. Her voice echoed with despair as she exclaimed, "This isn't possible." "It is, and it has been done," Jack retorted, keeping his voice low but firm. "The transaction has already been finalized. As of next week, that house will belong to another individual. You must find a new residence." Tears began trickling down Olivia's face as she realized the gravity of her loss. There was no safety net left, no plan B that could shield her from this predicament. In plain sight now, Jack's manipulation was undeniable, carried out as she lived his deceit. Jack watched her struggle to regain composure, seemingly waiting for surrender. However, before departing, Olivia moved towards him, determined for one final attempt. "Why did you act this way?" she implored, her voice brimming with distress. "I acknowledge my error. I know I can't explain my actions, but why do it in such a heartless manner?" Pausing momentarily, he responded, "Would you like the truth?" At last, he said, "It was because I loved you, so much that I became blind to your actions and true nature. When I discovered the truth, I felt as if the ground beneath me had vanished. But now I comprehend that the love I felt couldn't shield me from the truth. So I did what I deemed necessary to safeguard myself from what you might inflict." A chill ran through Olivia's body. "What's your next step?" he inquired, aware that any response would be dire. Jack exhaled deeply. "I'll depart," he admitted. "I've fulfilled my duty, and now it's your task to manage the consequences of your actions. The attorney will handle the specifics of the divorce, and we won't cross paths again." Jack's final statement seemed decisive as he exited without a glance back. Alone, Olivia felt the house grow frigid and barren. She understood that this was the definitive end, not just of the marriage, but of everything she believed about herself and Jack. In the ensuing days, Olivia found herself compelled to vacate the house. She attempted to contact friends and family, but most of those who had once been close recoiled, unable to sympathize with someone who had so openly and selfishly destroyed their own marriage. She sought a new dwelling, a humble apartment, distanced from all remnants of her past home. As she prepared to depart, she understood that the burden of her losses surpassed any satisfaction derived from retaliation. It was the sensation of being bereft of escape routes, deserted by one's own decisions. Meanwhile, Jack proceeded with his life, refraining from enjoying the fruits of his actions. Retribution, ultimately, was merely a tactic, and he acknowledged that it could not undo the anguish Olivia inflicted. However, he possessed his autonomy, an assurance he would no longer be controlled again. He relocated to a different residence, distant from all echoes of the past, prepared to attempt rebuilding his life. He was aware the journey wouldn't be simple, but it was a beginning. The conclusion did not bring joy to any party. Olivia suffered the consequences of her decisions and, solitary, had to confront the void she herself engendered. Through his experiences, Jack discovered that love could be both a precious gift and a destructive force, sometimes necessitating the sacrifice of everything to protect oneself. What's your take on this tale? Share your thoughts below. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel for more compelling narratives similar to this one. Keep in mind that this platform does not condone any form of deceit. Here, we illustrate how poor decisions can lead to dire outcomes. Until the next narrative.